I have a question for you, but it might be a little bit uncomfortable, or maybe it'll just feel strange for you in this particular context, okay? The question is, have you ever been reading your Bible, paying attention to what God has said in His Word, and you thought to yourself, well, okay, I mean, that's lovely and all, but it's just not true? Now, I ask you that question, I hope you know, if you know me, I ask you that question from a vantage point that holds the Scriptures in supreme regard. I think we have a solemn obligation, a solemn privilege to know and understand and trust and obey everything that God has revealed. But still, I ask the question, are you troubled by promises and descriptions that are wildly divergent from your own direct observation? There's a section in the Bible known as the wisdom literature, and probably the most famous books in the wisdom literature are the Psalms and the Proverbs. They contain, I would say, most of the material that makes us be like, okay, what? Is that accurate? Is that really what the world is like? And probably, maybe one of the mother of all examples is the passage that Roger read to us this morning from Psalm 1. The first psalm is the gateway to the Psalms. It kind of sets the stage for the whole collection of these poems and songs. And Psalm 1 says it's really simple. Good guys win and bad guys lose. If you were paying attention when Roger read that, good guys win. Everything they do prospers. They're like a tree planted by a stream of water, right? But not the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. And I wonder if you've ever read Psalm 1 and thought, yeah, but not really, not actually, right? Do I need to be fired? Is this heretical to you, right? You guys, Psalm 1 is reflected on in the Bible over and over and over again. Because a lot of people that came before us, that love God, that love His Word, that knew Psalm 1, read it and were like, well, wait a minute, time out. It makes a huge claim, and then gets reflected on, and people will just say, well, what do you mean? Good guys lose all the time, and bad guys win way more often than any of us would like. In fact, if you want to go chase this theme, there's numerous places it happens. One way that's easy to remember is Psalm 37 and Psalm 73. They kind of flip. 37 and 73, they are both reflections on Psalm 1, and they both do this like timeout. One of the most pointed reflections on Psalm 1 in the entire Bible is in Jeremiah 15. I want you to turn there for just a second. Jeremiah 15, Jeremiah is having an experience that is perfectly inverted from what Psalm 1 says, okay? If you go back through Psalm 1, it's just the way that he frames it is very simple. There's two things that define the righteous person in Psalm 1. Number one, they don't hang out with the bad kids. I did not sit in the seat of mockers. How does it go? I did not walk in the ways of mockers, stand in the seat of sinners, sit, stand, walk, whatever it is, right? I'm not hanging out with the bad kids. I have that memorized, believe it or not. I just mangled it completely, right? I don't hang out with those guys. And number two, his delight is in the law of the Lord. He loves the word, okay? What Jeremiah does in Jeremiah 15 is he picks those two exact things and says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Listen to what he says, Jeremiah 15:16. He says, when your words came, I ate them. They were my joy and my heart's delight, for I bear your name, right? It's like, I ate your word, okay? And then he says in verse 17, I never sat in the company of revelers. I never made merry with them. I sat alone because your hand was upon me and you had filled me with indignation, right? What he is saying there is, I Psalm 1'd like a beast. There are two things you asked me to do, and I did them both to the greatest extent. And yet, look at verse 18. Why is my pain unending and my wound grievous and incurable? Listen to the audacity of this. He's talking to God. You are to me like a deceptive brook, like a spring that fails. He's saying, I'm the tree, and I have done exactly what you asked me to do. So where is the stream? Psalm 1 doesn't feel true to Jeremiah, and I would guess that it's probably not felt true to many of you at various times of your life. Psalms and the Proverbs give us this depiction of what the world ought to be like and of what it ultimately will be like. But they have a third partner. Within the wisdom literature, there's another book, and it's called Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes jumps into this story that is being told by the Psalms and being told by the Proverbs, and it essentially interrogates all of these claims that the Psalms and the Proverbs make. Psalms and Proverbs say what the world ought to be like, ultimately what it will be like, but Ecclesiastes says, why don't we include what the world actually is like right now? And it blows in with all of this really pretty startling contrast to the things that maybe some of the other passages say. And so we're going to study it all summer long. We're going to be in Ecclesiastes for the rest of the summer, and I think it is going to be an incredibly important study. I think it's going to be a really refreshing study. Our goal here is to bring refreshment to you, because I think that as the winds of truth blow freely, there's something that's just healing in our own hearts. But I also think, and I also believe, that it's going to be a very hopeful study, because it is only when we look at life as it actually is, when we're honest about it, that we really have a chance to perceive, okay, Lord, what are you doing? What are your good purposes in this? And so I think it's going to be a really good time. My goal today is to persuade you to read it, okay? Ecclesiastes is 12 chapters long. You can read it this week, no problem, and start loading it into your brain. And what I want to do here, not just persuade you to read it, but kind of give you the key points to look for. So I hope that you'll read it this week, you'll remember the things we're going to talk about for the next 20 minutes, and then you'll be able to discern those passages there, because today is really the outline for the entire series. Today we want to give you the high-level view so that you can kind of understand it, and then as we walk through it all summer, you'll kind of grab it. All right, so here's what I want you to know. The author of Ecclesiastes is quoting someone. He has this person that he really admires, and he's going to source him over and over and over again. This person is called in the NIV the teacher. In the ESV, he's called the preacher. If you could read Hebrew, he would be called Koheleth. Or if you could read the Greek translation of the Hebrew, he would be called Ecclesiastes. Okay, so the name of the book is not the author, it's this person that the author is citing. Okay, now some of you might know that the word church is a translation of a Greek word, ecclesia, and you might kind of hear the similarity between ecclesia and Ecclesiastes because they share the same root. The ecclesia, us, is the gathered ones. We are the gathered body. And the Ecclesiastes is speaking to the gathered body. So he's the teacher, he's the preacher, he's the one who addresses a gathered crowd. And the author of this book is going to source him over and over and over again and say, well, he said this, he said this, he said this. Now, this person, the Ecclesiastes, Koheleth, the teacher, the preacher, might be Solomon, might not. I'm not really sure who he is. But he is the guy who's going to give us all this insight. And he has an undisputed favorite word. If you read the book, it would be unmistakable to you. You'll see this over and over and over again. It's his favorite word. He uses it 28 times in 12 chapters. He uses it more than the rest of the Bible combined. And the word is hevel. If we transliterated it into English, it would be H-E-V-E-L. Hevel, 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 hevel. He says it over and over and over and over, okay? It's a little bit of a tricky word to translate. Most words are. No word has a direct, exact correspondence. The NIV likes the word meaningless when it translates hevel. The ESV, King James, they both use vanity. CSB uses futility. And the teacher uses it constantly. Okay, here's a few samples. He says in chapter 1, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Chapter 2, I thought in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasures to find out what is good, but that also proved to be meaningless. Chapter 3, man's fate is like that of the animals. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so dies the other. All have the same breath. Man has no advantage over the animal. Everything is meaningless. Chapter 5, whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with his income. This too is meaningless. Chapter 9, here's a fun one. Enjoy life with your wife, whom you love, all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun, all your meaningless days. For this is your lot in life and your toilsome labor under the sun. Or the final quotation from the teacher in which he says, Meaningless. Meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Hevel, 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 hevel. Okay? Now, what does he mean? When he says hevel, what is he talking about? As I said, more than half of the usage of hevel are in Ecclesiastes. The other half, of course, are scattered throughout the rest of the Old Testament. One of the most common ways that it's used outside of Ecclesiastes is in reference to worthless idols. If you read this in English, we'll talk about worthless idols. And the word behind that is actually hevel. Now, you might imagine that hevel is behind the word meaningless, and the idol, some other Hebrew word is behind the word idol, but in fact, that's not the case. There is no idol. It simply says they are worthlesses. It turns worthless, it turns hevel into a noun. So Deuteronomy 32:21 says, literally says, they made me jealous by what is no God, and they angered me with their worthlesses, right? The idol itself is called a worthless. And so it conjures this idea of this empty claim. It's just smoke and mirrors. It's nonsense. There's nothing real behind it. Another way hevel gets used and translated is as the word breath. So in Psalm 62, it says, low-born men are but a breath, a hevel. The high-born are but a lie. If weighed on the balance, they are nothing. Together, they are only a breath, a hevel. So hevel is this idea of something that is ephemeral and short-lived, that it amounts to nothing. Elsewhere, it's going to be used in reference to things that are futile or empty or that are vapors, that are vanity. And the teacher is saying that describes vast swaths of our experience. The number of things that he is going to label hevel, besides the ubiquitous everything is hevel, is just incredible. When you read through, you'd be like, man, this guy has such a low view. So why? Why does he take this view that, you guys, that everything is hevel? Okay? This is where I would love you to jot something down, okay? So this week, if you read through it, 12 chapters, if you decide, okay, I'm just going to understand what this book says, I'm going to trust these guys this summer, but I'm also going to read it on my own. Jot this down in your margin. If you're on like an iPad or something like, make a digital note. Do whatever you do. Here's what I want to give you. He is going to give us 3 primary reasons that life is hevel. He doesn't give them to us once. He gives them over and over and over again. If you kind of like digest the book, he's got these 3 great enemies, and they are why everything is hevel. Okay? But he's also going to give us 4 strategies that we tend to try. There's actually a couple more, but the 4 major strategies that he tries. He's going to give us those and say, yeah, we do this, we do this, we do this. Of course, P.S., the strategies themselves, hevel. It's not going to work, okay? And then he's going to say, but here's what I would say. When all is said and done, having stared life in the face, what I want you to see is that these are my 3 recommendations. In this world, in this heavily world, here are the 3 things you got to do. And then he gives us his big conclusion at the end. Okay, so what we're going to do over this, that's the outline for the summer. We're going to look at the 3 great enemies. We're going to look at the 4 strategies. We're going to look at the 3 recommendations when all is said and done, and then the big conclusion. Let me give them to you now. Jot them down, and you can look for them. You'll see them. They just pervade. But hopefully, if you know them ahead of time, it'll help you make sense of the book. 3 great enemies. Number 1, death. Rich or poor. Human or animal. Everybody dies. You can eat well, wear your seatbelt, jog 3 miles a day. Or you can eat like a slob, smoke a pack a day, and live recklessly. But you're going to die either way, so what's the point? Death is the favored enemy of Ecclesiastes. Number 2, random injustice. You guys, victory does not always go to the race does not always go to the swift, nor victory to the strong. But all kinds of things interfere. And life is filled with random injustice. Things just do not go the way you think they're going to go. They're not the way that they should go. Evil often gets away with murder. It's hevel. And then number 3, everything is cyclical anyway. It's just this insane merry-go-round. For how many centuries have politicians been telling lies? Have do-gooders been crusading against some wickedness and the rich exploiting the poor? Same song, different verse, and the world spins madly on. Hevel. Okay? These are his three great enemies. Watch for them. They just recur over and over again throughout the book. But not to worry, because we are so brilliant. We've got all these strategies. Here's his four basic strategies are wisdom, pleasure, work, and wealth. But if we're being honest, when he says pleasure, what he really means is women. So we can increase the alliteration. It's wisdom, women, work, and wealth. Wisdom, women, work, and wealth. That generally spoken, pounded into people's minds is wisdom, pleasure, work, and wealth. I think something is going to work there. And you may have noticed that it didn't work for anybody else. But we all have this thing like, yeah, but I just don't think they were as good at it as I would be. And so I'm going to take a swing because I think that it'll work for me. And the author, the teacher, he tried every one of those things to a greater extent than we probably have the resources to try ourselves. And his conclusion is every one of those strategies is Hevel. But take your best shot, okay? And then he gives you his three recommendations. When all is said and done, here's what I'm going to tell you that you should do. Here's where the answer lies. And I'm not going to tell you what they are, okay? You got to have something to look for, okay? So as you read through Ecclesiastes, comb out the three great enemies. Comb out those four strategies that we try. And towards the later chapters, just pay attention, all right? Come up here. You tell me what you come up with, all right? What is he saying? Yeah. But everything's a mess, and nothing works perfectly. But I think this is going to be your best odds lie in these three strategies, in these three kind of recommendations. So that's what he's going to do. So take a look at it, and we can compare notes. We'll tell you what they are later on this summer, but I want you to start hunting for them already. Okay? So I'm super excited about this study, and I really hope that you will enjoy the honesty of it. This is going to be, we're going to break through, I think, a lot of religious silliness and nonsense that Christians tend to prattle on about. Those of you with a strong inner cynic might really like this. You might be refreshed by a little bit of gut-level honesty. It will not be a very Pollyanna summer. But I need to tell you, our goal here is not to satisfy your inner cynic, but actually to challenge it. Because there's more to Ecclesiastes than I've even already just said, okay? Hevel is the undisputed most important term in the book. But the most recurrent phrase is something else. Does anybody know what is the most recurrent phrase in the book of Ecclesiastes? Under the sun, Harrison. Under the sun, under the sun. It occurs 27 times, second only to Hevel, and it sounds like this. 1:3. What does man gain from all his labor at which he toils under the sun? Ecclesiastes 1:9. What has been will be again. Hear the cyclicalness? What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. 1:14. I've seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Okay? Do you know what that phrase means? Under the sun, under the sun, under the sun. What he's talking about is that in this physical, material, functionally atheistic universe, everything is Hevel. It's all meaningless. If all that we can see is all that there is, it is meaningless. Life would be Hevel. If I were not a Christian, I would be a nihilist, 100%. Because if Christianity is not true, the only plausible philosophy is nihilism. It is meaningless. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, that signifies nothing. But friends, someone has entered time and space who is not Hevel and who has upended the heaviness of everything. He comes from beyond the sun. He is not merely under the sun. And in fact, he made the sun, for he is the sun. And without him, nothing was made that has been made. And in him, all things hold together. He gives meaning to what is otherwise meaningless. I am not a nihilist. I am a Christian. And I am not a nihilist because there is a Christ. The great enemies, just consider the great enemies. The first great enemy is death. Well, so what about that? He conquered death. He is stronger than death, and death no longer has sting. Death couldn't hold him, and it won't hold us either. The second great enemy is injustice. Well, Jesus drank the river of injustice. No one has ever lived who is more worthy of experiencing good or more patient in suffering evil. And he took upon himself our injustice so as to be just and the one who justifies those who trust in him. The great enemy is the time loops around and around and is endlessly cyclical. Not anymore, it doesn't. In Christ, time has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We have divided all of human history into the time before he came and then the years of his gracious reign. And he is bringing all things to a conclusion. You guys, the eschaton has already begun. You have lived your entire life in a world in which a man has been raised from the dead, and he is ushering history to a conclusion, to a telos, to an end, to its purpose. He is the first fruits, the sample of resurrection. And those of us that are in him will be raised along with him. The cycle has been broken, and the end is drawing near. You guys, everything is hevel under the sun. But we who know Christ do not live merely under the sun. Jesus brings meaning. He ends futility. He is not a vapor. He keeps his promises. So, this summer, what I hope that you'll do with us is, number one, read Ecclesiastes. It's 12 chapters long. You can bang it out this week. As you read it, watch for the three great enemies. You'll see over and over again death and random injustice and the cyclical nature. Watch for these strategies, for the work, the pleasure, the wealth, what am I missing? Wisdom that he throws. Look for the recommendations when all is said and done. But notice as you go through it that Christ is king over all of it. He is not stuck under the sun, and he invites us. We are seated with him in the heavenly places. We are invited out of this mere physical universe to live in the kingdom in which he reigns. This particular morning, it may be, in fact, it certainly is for many of you, that the apparent meaninglessness, the heaviness of life is already strong upon you. Certainly in this room, I don't even know how many scores of us would say, hevel. We'd invite you this morning to come. If you read Psalm 37, if you read Psalm 73, if you read Jeremiah 15, you will discern that God invites his children to come to him and to be candid. To say, man, I just hate the way this is. I don't know why he got the promotion when I deserved it. I don't know why he is thriving and I am not. I don't know why her situation is so much better than mine when I'm the one. I don't hang out with the bad guys. I love your word. I don't get it, right? You are invited to come to this rail and to say, Lord, I don't like the way you run your universe. I don't understand why things are the way they are. But we'd invite you to come with some faith and some hope that perhaps in this heavenly world there are things that we do not yet understand and the purposes that God has, and that he really does love you, and he really will work all things together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purposes. This rail is for you alone. If you want to be, we'll have friends at the straight rails to pray with you. And I really do hope that this summer, as we spend time in this book, it will be rich for you, and you will come to understand in a new way the things in life that genuinely feel futile, but you'll understand them from a lens of hope, that the God who reigns over all things knows what he's doing, despite all evidence to the contrary. You with me? Lord Jesus, you are the King. Why would you leave the land beyond this sun to come and to experience the death, the injustice, the misery of it all is beyond comprehension? That you love us enough to come and to be with us, not to merely suffer for us, but to also suffer with us, is a grace beyond compare. We love you. We exalt you. Would you speak to us in your word and help us make better sense of the place that you have put us, that we might faithfully walk before you and praise your holy name. Amen.
As we move into a time of prayer, we'd love to invite y'all to stand and sing with us. And if you'd like to pray, these curved rails are here if you'd like to come down and pray by yourself, or if you're feeling like you would like someone to pray with you or pray for you, we'll have prayer ministers at these front rails. But let's worship together.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, holy, there is no one like you. There is will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you, there is none beside you. Open up my eyes